The Giannis trade rumors are starting to heat up again. Like, for real, this is happening. And I'm not gonna lie, I think the Bucks are actually kind of screwed this time. I don't really think they have any outs. I don't think there's any big Drew Holiday trade. There's no Dame Lillard on the horizon. They're out of races to run. This is a lame duck franchise, essentially. And so with that, this means two things. One, the NBA storylines tier list is already completely, like, out of date and just completely irrelevant by this. And two, this is going to dictate the trade market for the next, like, 6 to 8 months. At least until this deal happens, like, a bunch of deals that happen around the NBA are going to be triangulated around teams that are trying to get Giannis and trying to put themselves in positions to make it happen. So in this video, I'm going to basically go through all the teams that I think can actually conceivably get him and basically give their trade packages and what I think about all those teams. If you guys like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. But let's just get into this one. So first up, let's just run through all the teams that I actually think, like, could trade for Giannis under the right circumstances. So the teams that I think could actually trade for Giannis are the Detroit Pistons, New York Knicks, Toronto Raptors, Miami Heat, Boston Celtics, Orlando Magic, Cleveland Cavaliers, Atlanta Hawks, Indiana Pacers, I know that one's kind of spicy, the Lakers, Rockets, Spurs, Warriors, Blazers, Minnesota Timberwolves, because why the hell not? Now, right away, I do want to throw out that I am not putting the Thunder on this list. They could do it. Like, they have probably the best package, probably the most assets. But first of all, we already live in hell. This team is 21-1. I don't want to imagine them also having Giannis on the roster. And B, they won a title last year. Like, they're good enough and to win a title this year. They're already the best team in the NBA. There's no need to make this trade. There's no urgency to make this trade. Pretty much my criteria for whether or not you could trade for Giannis is A, you need to have, like, a reasonable package, and B, you need to not be completely garbage. Now, yes, the Pacers are completely garbage right now, but they should be pretty good next year. Like, I think most of us would just pen them into the playoffs next year once they get Halliburton back, once they get healthy, and they're going to get a high draft pick this year. So they have the assets to make it happen, plus, again, like, an actually good team going into next season. But other than that, pretty much every team on my list is at least average to good, and even, like, the below average teams on this list have something else to compensate for that with. But we'll start from the top of my list. First, I have a category of teams that I think can only make this trade in the offseason. There might be more teams that fit into this category depending on, like, contracts and salaries and stuff, but for my money, I think these teams could just not make this happen at the deadline. There is merit to this happening at the deadline because there are some teams that are probably more eager to get their hands on him now before the list of teams that are going to be in the bidding war increases in the offseason. It may also be the reverse where there will be less teams with worse offers by the time the offseason rolls around, so it may be the best for the Bucks to trade him immediately before they have less leverage. So these are the teams I think can only trade for him in the offseason. First, the Indiana Pacers, who I've already mentioned. This trade is kind of weird. It would have to center around Aaron Nesmith, Obi Toppin, a couple other young guards, probably Andrew Nembhard and Benedict Mathurin, or at least one of them, and then just a shitload of picks, including their pick this year. You could throw in Pascal Siakam to sort of compensate for the Bucks, like, not really getting back, like, some like, elite players, like, not getting back, like, a big salary. Siakam plus the pick this year, plus, like, one of those young guards is actually not that bad of a trade. I just don't really love it for Milwaukee compared to these other offers. I think Indiana is already dealing with a lot of uncertainty with the Halliburton thing, so I don't really love it for either side, but this is like a decent return, I think, and I think it kind of makes sense. I think the Orlando Magic could make it happen in the offseason for the right price. This trade would have to circle around Paolo Banchero because the Orlando has been on a rocket without Paolo, so I kind of understand that they might want to trade him. That might be the next move for them, to be honest, to, like, really get this team set in stone around Franz. So it'd be Paolo Banchero plus stuff. I don't know what the stuff would be. You're probably moving, like, Wendell Carter or, like, I don't know, draft picks, whatever. Paolo Banchero would be the real prize here. Arguably the second best player that the Bucks could get in a trade. I think it's kind of decent for them, but I still don't love the fit just because Orlando is lacking a lot of shooting. They're already dealing with fit issues with Paolo. I just feel like even if you upgrade him, it's still not ideal. And this is not a team that makes big trades. Other than the Desmond Bane trade, they almost never go off after big fish. So this is not really their MO. Next, I got the Portland Trailblazers. Now, the reason the Trailblazers aren't going to do this during the season is because they kind of got to figure out what's going on with their guard rotation between Scoot Henderson and Shaedon Sharpe. I don't think they really know what they have with those guys yet, and they also just aren't that great, so I don't really think they can add Giannis and then try and make a run at the title this year. For the record, I don't think there's any team in the NBA that should be trying to trade for Giannis at the deadline to make a run for the title this year. Like, I think you're just gonna get throttled by OKC if you think that's what's gonna happen if you trade for Giannis. Like, I don't even think the Rockets could, like, make a reasonable claim that they should do that, or, like, the Knicks, even though they're arguably the best team in the East. It would be a big adjustment, and I just think OKC is too good to risk that. So that's not really the calculus for me. Really, if you're trading for Giannis at the deadline, then you're only doing it so that you can kind of like work the roster in the offseason and then start to really make a run for a title the next year. But for Portland, it would have to be one or both of Scoot and Shaedon Sharpe, Jeremy Grant, their own pick this year, and pretty much all of Milwaukee's picks back. That's the big reason why this trade is good. Portland controls Milwaukee's draft for like 3 straight years from the Damian Lillard trade. They have a big salary in Jeremy Grant that they could flip him for, and so there are ways that Portland could make this deal pretty palatable. I just don't know if they have the right amount of young assets to make this happen. It's maybe just not quite as good of a trade that these other teams can make. Like, we don't even know if Scoot Henderson is good yet, and I would probably err on the side of the Bucks just like sticking with Rollins as their point guard. I threw Minnesota and Boston on this list, even though I don't really think either of these teams have a great claim. Boston cannot make a run at the title this year. There's really no reason for them to, like, I think, reorient the roster. Plus, I don't think Derek White and Peyton Pritchard is enough to make this happen. I think the Jays are just off the table, and that's really a non-starter if you're trading Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum, in my opinion. And Minnesota also just doesn't have enough. Like, the deal starts and ends with Jaden McDaniels, and that's just like what else are you going to attach him to? Like Rob Dillingham, like Rudy Gobert? No. So Minnesota doesn't really work. Boston doesn't really work. I think San Antonio works, and I don't think they would do this during the season just because I think they're still a little bit young. I still think they're like a year away from like really trying to get into the title contending mix. So they'd probably want to do this during the offseason. Plus, it would give them more time to decide between Dylan Harper or Stephen Castle who would be in this trade. It'd have to be one of them. Picks, Harrison Barnes, some other contracts, but I actually think this is one of the better offers. You have a ton of picks if you're the Spurs that you can throw around. You have picks from the Kings, you have picks from the Mavericks, you have picks from the Hawks, you have so many draft assets. You've got 2 of the better young guards in the NBA. I think Dylan Harper is just a taller version of Jalen Brunson. I think Stephon Castle has an all-star ceiling as well, so I think those are really good assets. Plus, like, Giannis and Wemby is just so hype that this is one of my favorite trades, to be honest. Then next, I put the Miami Heat on this list, pretty much for, like, seniority. I mean, the Heat are always in the discussion for players like this. This is just what they do. This is what he does. This is what he does. Illegal. Alien. They don't have a great package this time around. Tyler Hero, Khalil Ware, Andrew Wiggins, draft assets. They've also got to figure out the Terry Rozier thing before they know what's going on. Whether they get compensatory picks for that or how that's going to get resolved, I think is going to be the big domino that has to fall before Miami can really do anything. And really, the biggest thing they have going for them in this trade is the fact that they play in Miami. Like, that's the big selling point if you're the Heat. But, like, to be honest, other than that, I really don't love this one. They would also be super thin after this trade. They'd have to completely reorient the roster around Bam and Giannis. Like, it would be kind of ridiculous. And then the last team that I think can only make this trade work in the offseason is the Cleveland Cavaliers, who also happen to be my favorite team in this category. Their finances are completely boned right now. Like, they've got, like, they're in second apron hell. They've got a bunch of massive salaries on this roster. They're kind of hamstrung in terms of what they can do in big moves. But if they can find the wiggle room to make it happen, Evan Mobley and stuff, I actually think is a workable deal that Cleveland would have to consider. Evan Mobley has been good this year, but he has not, like, shocked the earth. Like, he has not been, like, an earth mover for them. He's been very good. He's one of the best defensive players in the NBA, and he's super young. To me, this is the best player that the Bucks could get in a trade, just because of his potential, his youth, and just, like, how good he is right now, and the contract he's on. I think that's a really good asset for the Bucks to pick up. They can get other stuff from the Cavs that's not unreasonable. And if the Cavs can make it happen, I mean, Donovan Mitchell, Garland, Allen, Giannis, like, if you can keep all of those guys together, like, that's an insane team, and that would be my favorite to come out of the East next year. It's just a matter if they can make it happen financially, and whether or not Evan Mobley by himself pretty much is a big enough selling point for the Bucks. Though I think they definitely look at it if they're not going to be able to get their picks back from one of these other teams. That's another factor. The Bucks have to consider getting talent if they cannot get draft assets. Like, Indiana can kind of give them both the talent and a really good pick this year, so they can swallow the pill of being mediocre the next few years if they get like the first pick in the draft this season. But like, if you're trading with the Spurs and you get like one of Harper or Castle and you don't get like a really good talent to like bridge the gap between now and then, like, you're just gonna have to endure being shit for a while and like just hope that the other picks you get are like really, really good. And so now I've got a group of teams that I think could do this trade now or in the offseason. I don't really like any of these teams other than Atlanta, who we'll get to in a minute, but none of these teams are like completely inconceivable to me. I think the Raptors could do it if they were willing to part ways with Scottie Barnes, who's been arguably like the best defensive player in the NBA this year. Super versatile Swiss Army knife. He's hitting his threes. He's playing like an all-star, like a borderline all-NBA player. He's been amazing. He's a big reason the Raptors are like the second best team in the East. Him plus Grady Dick and Jakob Poeltl, I actually think could be a workable deal for the Bucks. It kind of gives them that decent bit of youth plus being good right now. If you get like a Jakob Poeltl, that's, I guess they already have Miles Turner, so that wouldn't really work. But you could get draft picks, you could get Jacoby Walter. The Raptors have other young assets. That's not something they're completely depleted of. And if it's not going to be Scottie, like, they also have other big contracts that they could make this happen. The Raptors have a lot of ways they could do this trade. I just, A, don't know if Giannis would want to play in Canada, and B, I don't know if they have the best young assets if they can't part ways with Scottie Barnes to make this happen. I think this deal kind of starts and ends with him, if I'm being honest, and the other stuff is kind of just window dressing. It's not great, but it's not the worst. Also, Giannis getting to stay in the East would be kind of sick, because if he's also out West, I mean, at that point, what? I think the 5 best players in the NBA are all in the Western Conference. Like, what the fuck are we doing? That conference is already insane. I think the Warriors have, like, I guess, a shot at making this happen. It'd have to be Kuminga, Moody, Pods, pretty much all the 2 timeline guys, plus one of your big contracts and probably some picks. This is not the best, like, collection of young assets. I will swear up and down that Jonathan Kuminga by himself is worth Giannis, but, like, the Bucks don't think that. Moody and Pods are okay. Warriors fans will tell you that Pods is a terrorist of the sport, and, you know, honestly, that's kind of fair with the way he's been playing lately. Their draft picks are, like, yeah. And then, like, what contract are you going to throw in? Are you going to throw in Jimmy Butler? Is it going to be Draymond Green? I don't really think that there's, like, a big workable deal for the Warriors here. They're also kind of mediocre, and they're also old. So, other than the fact that it's Giannis and Steph Curry, really not a big fan of this one. The Lakers are obviously going to be in the mix, because why the hell not? Like, they got Luka. I guess anything is possible. It'd have to be Austin Reeves and stuff. Austin Reeves would probably be arguably the second best player that the Bucks could get in a Giannis trade right now. Him plus, like, whatever young assets the team has, which is, like, a Du Thiero, Rui Hachimura. Like, the selling points here are really not great, but, like, I don't know. The Lakers, they could make it happen, I guess, with Reeves and stuff. So, you know, I'll put them in this category, but I'm really not a fan. If they could make this happen, it would be so sick. Arguably my favorite fit out of all these teams, but I just don't think they have the assets, even with AR-15 playing out of his mind. Again, because if there's one thing that the Bucks do have going for them outside of Giannis, it's that they have a pretty decent young point guard. Then next, I've got the New York Knicks. Karl-Anthony Towns plus a wing, probably OG Anunoby, and whatever picks they have, which I think is, like, pretty much 0, would probably maybe make this happen, but I don't really think that's a great deal for the Bucks. Karl-Anthony Towns and OG Anunoby are good win-now players, but they give you, like, 0 of that long-term stability. There is really no upside for this one for the Bucks, and I think that's just 2 gradually depreciating assets who don't really want to be there, and I'm just not really a fan. The only reason the Knicks are really in this conversation is this is probably Giannis's #1 trade target if he wants to go anywhere. He gets to stay in the East, to be on the best team in the East, and to be in New York. Like, what more could he possibly ask for? But I think a much better trade, and maybe my favorite trade out of all these teams, would probably be the Atlanta Hawks. You get Trae Young to Milwaukee, you get a bunch of picks, the New Orleans / Milwaukee swap this year, plus future assets from the Hawks, Zachary Risachet. They do have other young players they can throw in there, but it'd probably just be Risachet and Trae Young. Those are like the big selling points. And then Milwaukee getting to control a little bit of their draft assets, especially this season. This is a hype trade because Jalen Johnson plus Giannis sounds totally badass. Onyeka Okongwu in the mix. You've got like a workable guard rotation. The team has been better since Trae Young has been out, and then you get to just add Giannis to that. Like, that seems kind of insane. I'm not sure if the incentives are that high for the Bucks to make this happen because no one seems to like Trae Young in the NBA, and I kind of understand why. After this season, the draft capital prospect of it is also not that high, although they could potentially get, like, again, the first pick in the draft from this trade. So I think this one is totally conceivable, and honestly one of my preferred destinations for him. I'm just not sure if the incentives are that high for the Bucks to make this happen. Although, again, he gets to stay in the East, which is kind of sick. Then next, I got the Houston Rockets. I initially didn't want to put these guys on the list because I didn't think this one was worth it, but they've got KD, they've got a shit ton of picks from the Phoenix Suns, Reed Shepherd, Tari Eason. I guess they might even have some more young players than that, but those are like the big ones that I think the Bucks would actually care about. That's a pretty good offer. Now, yes, it does force Giannis to go out west, but, like, I mean, you get a good veteran right now in Kevin Durant. You get at least one season of him to bridge the gap. You get a ton of picks from the Suns, who have not been the worst team in the NBA this year, so those picks aren't as good as we thought, but I do still think they're pretty good assets overall. Reed Shepherd's been awesome, like a really, really good player for the Rockets. I almost think that they'd have a hard time getting rid of him just because he's been such a, like, a valuable, like, scoring threat for them. He's, like, one of their only guys that can really create off the dribble and shoot threes. And Tari Eason is a great pit bull on defense. He's never healthy. So that's, like, kind of a turn off for the Bucks as well. Not a bad return for the Bucks by any means, but I think sending him out west is a tough pill to swallow if you're Giannis. I think the Houston Rockets would probably not be compelled to take this big of a risk. It's a really big risk trading for a guy on the opposite end of 30. And those picks are, like, a little wishy-washy now that the Phoenix Suns have Jordan Ott. So this is not the best, but it's definitely not the worst. And then the last team I have on this list is the Detroit Pistons. Asar Thompson, Ron Holland, Jaden Ivey, Tobias Harris, and all the picks. It's actually a pretty simple trade. The Pistons don't have a lot of shooting, and so they'd probably be a year away from this deal being awesome because they'd need to probably go get some more pieces that fit really well. And this would deplete them of every single young asset they have. I think this trade would be really good for them to make in the offseason. Once they see how far they are from being the best team in the Eastern Conference, you get to keep Duren and Cade Cunningham, who are your all-stars. You get to add a superstar freak monster with Giannis. I think that would be a really, really good fit. They would just have to add a ton of shooting and hope that Giannis and Duren don't get in each other's ways too much. But if they can make that happen, then, I mean, this one's, like, pretty interesting. The Duren fit of it is definitely weird, but it's not completely unworkable, I think. And hell, you could throw Duren in this trade and keep one or two of those young assets that you would otherwise be giving up. If they can throw in Duren instead of Asar, I think they definitely look at that as well. And Giannis gets to stay in the East, which is, again, I think, like, the best part of this one. So I'm actually a big fan of this Pistons trade, and to be honest, this is one of my preferred destinations for him as well. Probably my fourth favorite, maybe my fifth behind the Lakers, which is kind of a fancy arrangement anyway, because how the hell is he going to get to the Lakers? And if I had to give my top three Giannis destinations, I'd probably go with the Spurs, Cavs, and Hawks. I think the Cavs would just be sick because you just swap him out for Mobley. I think that's super hype. You get this great Mobley revenge storyline in Milwaukee where he's kind of got to build himself back up. You get the Cavs trying it with one last dance between him and Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell gets to fight for his ring. He's the Dwayne Wade and Giannis is the Shaq. I think that's super badass. Plus, again, he gets to stay in the East, which is great. The Spurs is just like I mean, Giannis and Wemby is so cool. Like, that's like a superhero movie. So obviously I'd want to see that. And I think the Hawks is just a really good fit. Again, he gets to stay in the East. They have the draft picks. And it wouldn't really cost them that much because, again, they're playing better without Trae Young. Just not crazy high incentives for the Bucks, in my opinion, other than the draft pick. Honestly, this is a lot of teams, and I'm not really sure if any of these teams are going to be making, like, I don't really know if this is going to happen at the deadline. I would actually be inclined to believe that this trade will go into the offseason just because it's so seismic. It's such an earth-shattering trade. I don't think this can just be made within like a can just be cobbled together. That's not what's gonna happen here. But definitely let me know what you guys think of the Giannis trade rumors in the comment section down below. Make sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. I've got a 500 subscriber special coming out tomorrow, hopefully, and I'll catch you guys in the next video, man. Peace.